Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the University Senate to order, which is item 1 on the agenda. Item 2 is a motion to approve a special rule limiting each speaker to 2 minutes each time they are recognized. A 2/3 majority of those present and voting is required to approve the special rule. Is there any discussion? Host, please initiate the poll.
We'll give about 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 118 ayes, 3 nays, and 4 abstentions, that motion prevails.
Thank you. Item 3 concerns administrative responses to University Senate actions and is presented for information, but there are none pending. Item 4 is a list of recent faculty, staff, and student deaths that have been forwarded for announcement to the Senate. I invite you to observe a moment of silence while I read the names. Carolyn Buzza, Agustin Dalmaso, Mary Firpo, Dean Hughes, Carissa Isaacs, Craig Jackson, Debbie Koch, Greg Lockhart, Chad Marsalic, Alexander McBean, Brian Meckley, Mike Robinson, Bernard Taylor, Terry Tebow, and students Latifa Ajidabab, Kyle Benedicto, Nellie Hash, Son Kang, Xiaoran Wei, Chika Shu. Thank you for respecting the moment of silence. Item 5 is approval of minutes from the University Senate meeting on December 2nd, 2021. Chris, will you please initiate the poll?
We'll give about 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 129 ayes, 0 nays, and 10 abstentions, that motion does prevail.
Thank you. Item 6 is the Provost's report, and I'd like to call on Provost Croson to deliver the report.
Thank you, Professor Chomsky, and good afternoon. Chomsky, there we go. Good afternoon, everyone. As we enter spring break, I want to thank all of our faculty and students and staff for everything they've done to make this spring semester, at least so far, safe and healthy for everybody. I want to thank those of you who serve in university governance for your partnership as we continue to navigate this challenging time. I especially want to thank Ned and Colleen for their continued engagement with the Emergency Policy Management Committee, Emergency Management Policy Committee, with me, with President Gable, as we continue to navigate as things have shifted. Spring semester is proceeding well. I'm sure you've all followed the news. COVID cases are down significantly. In Minnesota, the 7-day case rate is as low now as it was in August before Omicron hit. So that's really wonderful news. We've had no clusters or outbreaks in our classroom. The positivity rate as measured of the percentage of positives for tests administered at Boynton as of last Friday was only 6.3%, with similarly low rates at our other campuses. The CDC has recommended that most Americans in most counties no longer need to wear masks indoors. This includes Hennepin, Ramsey, and Stevens counties, but it does not yet include St. Louis County, where Duluth is located, or Olmsted County, where Rochester is located. As you've probably seen, many of our peer institutions, our Big Ten peers for the Twin Cities and comparable peers for other campuses, have relaxed their indoor masking policy. And as you probably saw an announcement from the president, we're in discussion about what the future of that policy should be. We're hopeful we'll have an announcement shortly after spring break, but we haven't made a decision yet. On vaccination, system-wide, among our employees, over 95% have provided proof of vaccination, with fewer than 5% requesting exemptions. Among our students, system-wide, over 95% report vaccination, with fewer than 5% being granted exemptions. A recent audit randomly selected 200 students and verified their vaccination compliance for this spring semester. There were 2 students who were no longer at the university. Of the other 98 students, 100% of them enrolled for the spring were fully vaccinated and provided proof of that vaccination. We continue to consider how to incorporate boosters into our mandates and also levels of proof into our systems for employees versus for students as we think about what a steady state glide into the future might look like, and also to ensure that we're prepared if another Omicron comes along. In non-COVID news, you likely saw that the Board of Regents passed the renamings policy, voted to repatriate the members collection from the Wiseman, and received the report from the Nsf team that stemmed from Dr. Alexander's report on public safety. That Nsf report is robust, and we are now considering its many helpful and constructive recommendations. More internally, Dr. Will Durfee has launched our process for revision of our core curriculum. You will be hearing from him and that committee periodically. You'll be hearing at a Senate meeting in late March about a recommendation for instructor training on disabilities in the classroom. Many of your colleagues are hard at work on 2 task forces designed to guide the university toward greater accountability. One chaired by Jen Goodenough from Morris addresses faculty behavior in general. The other, chaired by Phil Bowman from the Twin Cities, focuses on interactions between faculty and graduate students. Professor Gable and I look forward to their reports in the upcoming months. I believe these are all really important and excellent steps in our continued evolution toward the type of university where we all want to work and study. I'm really proud to be a part of the institution, especially our shared commitment to shared governance and to continuous improvement. And I fully support these types of changes that President Gable is leading. So, Chair Chomsky, this concludes my report. I am happy to take questions.
All right. I do not think there were any questions received in advance. Or
Oh, I apologize. There was one in advance. Do you want me to do that one first?
Sure.
Okay. So the question was kind of long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the question was, how have the 360-degree developmental reviews of the deans been going? What's the process for that? And are we stepping up the frequency of those reviews? So as provost, I review the performance of the Twin Cities deans annually. For new deans, I conduct a 360 developmental review at 18 months after their hire. We have a number of new deans that started this fall. I typically conduct a comprehensive review at 3 years after a dean's hire, and then every 5 years thereafter. So during the pandemic, some of those reviews were delayed, but since I've been provost, we did one comprehensive review in spring 2020, one in spring 2021, one in fall 21, and there's another one planned for spring 22. My intention is to remain on that timed schedule for developmental reviews at 18 months, comprehensive reviews at 3 years, and every 3 to 5 years thereafter. As you know, the timing is such that some deans retire or transition back to the faculty, so that schedule adjusts with new dean hires and transitions in and out. But in response to the question, I don't plan to increase or change the frequency and use of those reviews. So that was the one question we got in advance. And maybe with that, we can go to the floor.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of that one. I see several hands raised, so we will just go through the questions. Emily McGuire.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. Emily McGuire, she, her. I'm the School of Public Health Student Senator. Thanks so much for taking our questions today. My question around public health is, first of all, I would advocate that we keep a mask mandate. As you said, we haven't had any classroom clusters. And I think that's a big part to our students and our faculty and staff doing a great job of wearing masks in the classroom and around campus and showing that we care for each other. My other question would be, what students are involved in that decision-making? Because I think the students are the majority of people in the classroom and on campus. And I'd be disappointed if there weren't students in that room. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question and the advocacy. There's kind of regular consultation, and I know that Megan Sweet talked just this week with leadership of MSA, COGS, PSA, and the SSC. So that is mostly how our involvement with students into the process is going, to hear their views.
Thanks, and thanks for identifying where you're senator from. I appreciate that. I should have reminded people of that to begin with. Sarani Millikan.
Thank you for taking our questions, Provost. Sarani Rangarajan Millikan, as a CC chair, I use she, her pronouns. I've been asked to ask whether you are, the concern I'm hearing is that for pedagogical or other reasons, persons who wish to mask might be compelled to unmask in contexts where people have the power to exert or require this for reasons. And so we continue to advocate for a masking to continue, but in the event that a masking mandate is removed, are you or is the university willing to commit to saying that persons who wish to mask will not be asked or required to unmask?
Sure, great question. So I'm not willing to commit anything right this very minute, but I fully agree that I think we need to land in a system where masking is supported, right? And so if you wish to mask, you are welcome and able and maybe even encouraged to do that. But that's different, of course, than saying everybody must.
Carl Flink.
Great, thank you, Carol. Carl Flink, Director of the Dance Program, member of FCC. Hi, Provost Croson. I support a thoughtful elimination of the mask mandate and enthusiastically support people's rights to wear masks, and that we need to emphasize that. I have a question. During the time while we're continuing to wait for decisions, is there a process for asking for exemption for activities for removing masks? I'll say specifically in regards to high physical activities in the performing arts and such. If there is, where do people go to seek those exemptions?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have not, up till now, as you know, given those kinds of exemptions. I don't see that changing for the rest of this week or the week of spring break, or even the week after. But I can imagine if we decide to keep masks after the week after spring break, there may be a more exemption, that we may introduce an exemption type process. So that's worthwhile thinking about.
And the final question, Sarah Lamb.
I would also like to see the mask requirement stay. But in the situation that the decision is to drop the mask requirement, I'm wondering if that might come with a threshold or a decision rule for putting masks back in place so that that decision can be made quickly if the COVID situation changes.
Yeah, that's a great question and a good suggestion. I think we definitely will need to be prepared to shift. Just, masks were off in the summer and then we put them back on for the fall. I don't know that we would necessarily determine the number. I think we might point to something like CDC and MDH guidance, the same way we have been up till now. But I think it's a good message. It's a good reminder to make sure that message goes out, that this is our decision for now and anything can change.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Provost Croson. Item 8 on the agenda is the Senate Consultative Committee report, and I'll call on Professor Patterson to give the report.
Thank you, Chair Chomsky. Mine will be pretty short, as many of the items in the Provost report were consulted with governance in general, so I don't need to add on to those. The Senate Consultative Committee in our most recent meeting did have discussions with the wellness program leadership about the wellness program for employees and trying to improve the usability and feasibility of it going well with the new vendor. And there might be a new vendor in the coming years, and being sure that governance has consultation and feedback into wherever that may go. And they were very open to some small changes that could happen quickly too. In the Senate Consultative Committee most recent meeting, we also talked about the resolution process in the Senate, and the Senate staff, with so far approval of the Senate Consultative Committee, has come up with new ways of recommendations on how to write a resolution, and then an official resolution submission form. So if you as a chair or a committee or as a senator are thinking of bringing forward a resolution, you should submit that to the Senate staff, and there's a form. And we're really trying to ensure that early on, we help everybody identify everybody the resolution may impact, and that we're sure to consult thoroughly and upfront as much as possible to have the most effective advice to the administration or what else it might be. So that's all being cleared up. And then there was quite a bit of consultation on the COVID vaccine requirements and COVID safety from the Senate Consultative Committee or the Consultative Committee leaders, including some more consultation in the next couple of days. And so then pretty much all other areas of Senate Consultative Committee and Consultative Committee leadership and discussion, and since our last Senate meeting, are really in the details of the agenda today. So I will just let the agenda for today move forward.
Thank you, Ned. Item 9 on the agenda is the report of the Faculty Legislative Liaison, and I will call on Professor Donna Spanos-Martin to give the report.
Thank you, Carol. I am Donna Spanos-Martin in the Center for Allied Health Programs, and I'm one of the 2 faculty legislative liaisons. Robert Blair is also the other faculty legislative liaison. And so we have been trying to meet with legislators in Minnesota. The capital request, there's $400 million in HEPA requests, which are the repair of buildings that we already have. But there's also a $72 million request to renovate Fraser Hall, the chemistry laboratories on the Twin Cities campus. $1.6 million request for the science design of the science building out of the older chemistry building in Duluth. $60 million for agriculture research and education complex, the farm program, and you can read about all of these on the government relations page. So I'm not going to go into detail on these. There are a few others. The budget request, there's $90 million for safety and security at the university, $85 million for sustainability and innovation, and $65 million for access and affordability for students, so scholarships. So we're talking with legislators about the request, but I also wanted to say that we were at the town hall that the FCC hosted for the faculty senators, and we certainly heard a lot of your concerns, and we do represent the faculty when we go to the legislators, so we will be taking your concerns about childcare, about salaries and non-competitiveness of salaries. We will be taking those concerns to the legislature also. One thing I also wanted to mention is that the advocates page that many of you may have signed up for has sort of had a turnover. They had to update it, if you will. So you may need to re-sign up for the advocates page. So you'll get notices of when we need people to advocate for the university. And you can do that at advocates.umn.edu. And although Rob and I talk to legislators, I just want to mention that nobody can tell your story as well as you can tell your story. So I would encourage you to sign up for that advocates page and talk with your legislators, and we will talk for you as much as we can. But as I said, you can tell your story much better than we can. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm ready to move on to item 10, but I see Will Jones with a hand up. There aren't discussion items up till now, so I'm just checking in to see. I don't want to ignore the hand. I'm just trying to figure out where it fits. I think you need to be unmuted just a second.
Yeah.
Can
you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I just had a question for Ned. I didn't know if there was time for. It was actually related to the issue of the town that were raised in the town hall. So they were brought up by the legislative report. But I wondered if the FCC had any response to issues around salary and around overwork during the pandemic that were raised in the town hall.
Thanks. We're a little ahead on the agenda, and so even though discussion isn't officially there, I'll see if Ned has something to add in response.
Sure. Thanks, Will. I'm going to talk about this a little bit in my faculty consultative committee report in the second part. And so there's some ongoing thing that I'll detail a little more in my faculty consultative committee report.
All right, thanks. Item 10 is a discussion and action on the resolution on caste-based discrimination, which was discussed at the December 2nd, 2021 meeting of the Senate. I'd like to call on Sarani Millikan to introduce the topic.
Thank you all. As Chair Chomsky said, we have had a robust discussion on this resolution at the last meeting. I want to highlight two quick things for you. First, we are not here today proposing specific language that the administration should adopt. Instead, we are asking you to support a statement of principle, namely that caste should be accepted as a protected category among the 16 other categories that this university currently protects. We discussed at the last meeting, and I repeat for the new senators amongst us, that caste is a hereditary social stratification system that is that has been practiced in multiple religions and across South Asia and its diaspora. Several universities have recently enacted protections against and prohibitions against caste-based discrimination, including Brandeis University, Kobe University, UC Davis, Cal State, and Harvard. One of the at the robust and excellent discussion that we had at the last meeting, certain suggestions were made that we are happy to incorporate as friendly amendments. And those you will see are reflected in the resolution that was sent out with the docket. I have typos in there. I apologize. I should have read the typos, looked for the typos more closely. In this time, one of the most frequent questions that we have gotten is whether there have been affected students here at the University of Minnesota. To this end, I would like to take 2 minutes to read a testimonial that a current student at the University of Minnesota drafted and wanted to share, but felt unable to share on his own. It begins thus, quote, "Dear University Senate, it is with regret that I am unable to testify on my own to this esteemed body on the issue of caste equality and the critical resolution related to the addition of caste as a protected category. The fact that this must be read by someone else and not by my own words is a consequence of the lack of explicit caste protections for students like myself. If I were to be public facing in my testimony, I would not only face even more discrimination on campus, but also economic and political ramifications that other Dalit students and faculty all around the United States have faced. This includes doxing, physical threats, reports to immigration, and even threats to remove our academic funding and support of our families from our countries of origin. This is wrong. As a Dalit student, the lack of explicit caste protections and the need to build caste competency at all levels of the university is preventing me and other students like me to have the same access as our peers. We cannot allow this fear and injustice to continue. To understand how adversity and exclusion I have faced, you must understand my beginning. I come from a Dalit Hindu family from South Asia. In school, the teacher often made me and other caste oppressed students stand separately from the other students to ensure that other students understood that I was untouchable and less than others. Our parents and ancestors were engaged in sanitation work, leather work, disposing of dead animals, and manual labors. This labor was a justification for our segregation, and we were forced to live in Dalit ghettos. I still remember in 11th grade, my father asked me to write a letter in English to our city council because they had cut the water supply to our house. My father had tears in his eyes and asked me to read that letter several times. He was proud that I was the first person in our entire family who had learned to write in English. It was at that moment that I realized that education was the key to us having power. Power to defend our rights, power to right wrongs, and power to address injustice. This is the same power that all of you have today to defend Dalit students, faculty, and staff. In every educational institution, I was shamed for English, my darker skin tone, and my poorer clothes. Several times I thought of committing self-harm. Having endured all of this discrimination in the country of my origin, I was thrilled to be one of the few Dalit students to be accepted to the University of Minnesota. I thought my experiences of caste discrimination was in the past, and that I can start a fresh chapter free of anxiety and trauma. The sense of relief was short-lived, as even in here in Minnesota, caste reared its ugly head. In my third week of arrival, I was invited to a South Asian students' gathering. There were 2 separate lanes for vegetarian and non-vegetarian food, and a separate seating arrangement intentionally set up to segregate people across caste lines. This harsh awakening was joined by even more awkward casteist engagements by dominant caste peers who worked aggressively to find my caste identity. I also had a dominant caste roommate at UMN who ridiculed affirmative action programs and shared how it was a big loss for dominant caste students who worked hard to be replaced by, quote, reserved category students. Despite continual microaggressions and exclusions, I continued to share the story of our humiliation and suffering. While many listened with empathy, all acknowledged that they did not know how to address this problem. I had no place to turn to for support to address my casteist interactions with dominant caste students who would use my caste background to criticize my professionality and competence. In one of the worst examples of this, one student who was unaware of my research interest on caste said, and I quote, "I don't believe in this casteism, racism bullshit. I don't understand why people do research on these things and why the university funds these projects." As caste is not a formal explicit category in the University of Minnesota's 16 diversity criteria, I did not think that approaching the Title IX office would help me. And if I did raise a complaint, would the staff there be caste competent to understand the shape and contours of this discrimination? The caste stress that I faced became so overwhelming that I had to seek a university therapist to address this trauma. And if not for the support of a few students and faculty members, I would have dropped out from UMN. My experience is not alone. Universities are both workplaces and educational institutions, and the amount of discrimination our community faces is intolerable. Nationally, Dalit students are facing caste slurs and microaggressions, discrimination in student housing and groups, and even more serious crimes such as gender-based and sexual violence and harassment. This experience of caste discrimination impacts immigrants from all Asian countries of origins, as well as all of our faith communities. I urge you to stand with me and my community and all communities who face discrimination based on work and descent. In passing this resolution, we honor the memory of those who have come before us, and I urge you now to support this resolution enthusiastic and without reservation, and stand alongside Dalits and caste oppressed peoples as we stand for our freedom, dignity, and education. Thank you to the authors of this resolution and the Senate for giving me this opportunity to share my testimonial. As we say in our community, Jai Bhim is a salute of freedom and liberty. Jai Bhim. End quote. This statement was supposed to be read by a Dalit sister who is unable to be here for personal reasons. And I feel it is unfortunate that I had to read it. We have a similar statement from a UMN alumnus who says, quote, "My name is Sonja Thomas, and I am a tenured associate professor and women's studies department chair at Colby College. I am also a UMN alum, class of 2001, and former secretary of the Asian American Student Cultural Center, Go Gophers. My time at the U shaped me profoundly. I was part of the Indian Christian community in the larger Minneapolis area. I was exposed to feminist anti-racist courses, switched my major from pre-pharmacy to English and cultural study, and went on to become a professor. I specifically researched caste, gender, race, and Christianity. I have published numerous peer-reviewed articles in an academic book on caste and Christianity. Colby College, the university that I work at, added non-discrimination to our policy in 2021. We became the second college in the nation to do so after Brandeis. And we did this by educating our students, faculty, and staff. We received widespread support and no opposition. I'm not exaggerating that fact. We received widespread support because Colby College community was willing to learn and be educated about the evils of casteism in the United States. To say that recognizing caste is, quote, homophobic, end quote, is misguided, and such a charge fails to understand how casteism functions in many different religions, including Christianity. By recognizing caste as a protected category, we protect those who may experience discrimination in any religion. Non-discrimination clauses are about protecting those affected by discrimination. And if by any chance anyone faces discrimination at UMN, then by having caste as a protected category, they have recourse. Do not be fooled by another charge going around that this is unlawful. In fact, if it is violence and intimidation, anger and argumentation against those who stand up for the oppressed, that is antithetical to the values of my beloved UMN. Recognizing caste allows us to follow the law. I applaud the Senate for seeing caste as a human rights issue. I am happy to talk further with the Senate about how casteism functions in Christianity. I thank you for your time. And once again, go Gophers. Once again, this space is open only to current students, faculty, and staff, and that is why Professor Thomas was unable to speak in her own voice in this space. The substantive criticisms and implementation details of this resolution belong to the policy holders of the policy. I apologize for the redundancy. And the ask here today is simply for you to vote to support this resolution, which calls for you and which calls upon the university to continue its legacy of leadership in combating discrimination by expanding our current category of non-discrimination to include policies, to include protections against caste-based discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarani. One note, and actually two notes before I call on speakers. Just a reiteration. I think Sarani began and ended, and I think it's important to note that what we do today doesn't change any policy. It is advisory to the university policyholders to consider this change. And then as I call on people, I just remind you, please to introduce yourself and who you represent. If you are not a university senator, you may be present, but you'd need time yielded from someone else. Ned Mohan.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for allowing me this time to make my voice heard that we should very strongly vote against this resolution. Can you hear
Can
me?
I ask you just to identify, if are you a senator and from which unit? You have to
Okay.
start with that.
Yeah, I was coming to that. So I should introduce myself. Okay, I'm not a university faculty senator. I'm an alternate for Professor Ravi Janardhan. And just a brief introduction of myself. I'm a Regents professor in Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. But most importantly, I have been teaching at the U for last 47 years. And in this time, I have graduated 50 PhDs, and out of which many women, many Indian students of all, I don't know their religions, but I could probably guess from the names, but I certainly do not know their caste. Okay, so I have had many students from India, and then also I have graduated some underrepresented minority students with PhDs, African American and Hispanic American. So, I never had this caste concern in my mind until this came to this forefront through this resolution. And if I may also add that my family legacy, that my grand uncle, he came to the United States in 1910, and he met with W.E.B. Du Bois in Tuskegee. And he, raised the concern about caste discrimination in India, which is real and which it still happens, but it doesn't mean that it happens here. Okay, and so he raised that concern. So I have been very aware of caste discrimination, and I, in fact, changed my last name, which indicated my caste. So Mohan was not my last name, but now I got rid of my last name, so Mohan is my last name. But it seems to me that this resolution is very Hindu-phobic, as it's anti-people, Indian people like me. So we are being, painted with a broad brush. And this anonymous letter that our friend here read, I'm not sure how much credence to give to that letter. But we can all agree that we want to totally eliminate all discrimination, whether it's caste discrimination, race discrimination. We want to get rid of it all. And so I also wonder how widely it has been discussed by students. The student senate has passed it, right? So I contacted the secretary of India Student Association, which is probably the largest India affiliated group at the university.
Professor Mohan, your time is up. I'm sorry to intervene.
Is it 2 minutes are up?
Yes, sir.
I didn't say anything. How about the other lady who said that she was reading the letter for 2 minutes and she went on and on and on, right?
It was the presenter of the item, not a speaker.
Okay.
So we'll move on, and if there's time and there aren't others to be recognized, you can be recognized again. I think we got much of your point. Thank you.
Okay.
Aaron Corfield.
Hi there, I'm Aaron Corfield. I'm a faculty senator representing the medical school. I did speak with my colleagues about this resolution, and there is broad agreement for this resolution within the medical school. As we're working to bend this university towards justice, I really think that it's important that we hear, see, and we act on areas where our peers are telling us that we're deficient. And we need to really see how our university is focused through the lens of how people are experiencing it from what they're telling us from their experiences. So from my perspective as a medical school senator, I would support this resolution strongly.
Thank you. I see Vivi Ganesh Shanathan next.
Thank you so much. I am a faculty senator representing CLA. I'm in the English department, and I am also speaking as a person of Sri Lankan Tamil, Ilanke Tamil descent. I was raised Hindu. I have caste privilege. I am of mixed caste descent, which means that my experience of caste has been quite specific despite my caste privilege, or in addition to my caste privilege. And I just want to note that casteism is an interfaith, intercaste, international issue. It's a civil rights and human rights issue. It is not actually a religious issue. And adding caste as a protected category will support people who have origins all over South Asia, Pakistan, Nepal, India, Bangladesh, indentured communities in the Caribbean and Fiji. Caste extends throughout South Asian diasporas. I'm a fiction and nonfiction writer. And in my time here and at other institutions, I've had the privilege of working with a number of South Asian writers, all of whom are interested in and critical of thinking about caste in different ways and thinking about being critical of caste. And many of them are they're from a range of communities. And you heard Professor Thomas speak about how caste operates within Christian communities, or rather you heard Sarani read that statement. So I just want to emphasize that this is an additive approach. It's an additive layer of protections. I'm very excited that UMN could be one of the institutions that is bringing this kind of protection and support to our students who I think deserve it. It doesn't detract from existing protections for any religious or ethnic group. And as a person who was raised Hindu, I do not feel that this is Hindu phobic at all. I feel that it is a way that it will enable the institution to develop process through which we can support students who are experiencing this kind of discrimination, and not only students, but also faculty and staff. And I think it puts us—
Nathan, your 2 minutes are up. I'm sorry to intervene.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you. 2 minutes does go pretty quickly sometimes. I see Ellen Messer-Davidow.
Thank you. Ellen Messer-Davidow, Faculty Senator, English Department in CLA. For me, there's a bottom line, and the bottom line is this campus should give no space to invidious categories, and particularly those which inevitably are accompanied by hateful speech and action. So I support the resolution strongly and encourage you to vote in favor of it. I would also like to see, and I don't know why we would need a resolution for this, the EEO office or the diversity units could start providing educational and informative material on caste, on caste discrimination incidents and data, so that we could all read up on it. It's clear to me from this discussion, as far as it's gone, and the prior discussion, that we all have a lot to learn if we haven't ourselves experienced caste phobia. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Shanti Narasimhan.
Thank you, Carol. I'm Shanti Narasimhan. I'm a faculty senate, from the medical school I represent, and I've been here in Minnesota for over 25 years. And I work with all learners at all levels, from undergrad students, medical residents, fellows. And I have not seen this. I have not heard from my learners. From my experience is what I'm talking about. So I really urge the university to enforce to not target students and faculty by instituting this policy, so that we will be clearly treated differently by all other, religion or origin at this point. And this is what I gather my data from.
Thank you. She's Scott Petty.
Hi, my name is Scott Petty. I am the graduate student senator from CFANS, and I am one of the co-authors of this resolution. I just got in line because I wanted to yield my 2 minutes to Professor Mohan so he could finish his thoughts, and ask the secretary to give people a little bit of a warning before calling their 2 minutes up. But so that we can have a full discussion, I'd like to yield my time to Professor Mohan.
Thank you, Scott. We were realizing that we needed to give that warning, and we do intend to do that. So I apologize for those who didn't have warning when their time is up. Professor Mohan.
Unmute yourself. Okay, I'm sorry. So I'm unmuted now. I hope my 2 minutes starts now. That it seems to me, if I read the footnotes and also what our first person who introduced this resolution is really targeting against Hindus and Indians. Because when you say caste, the first thing that pops into your mind is Hindus and Indians. Okay, although it happens in every religion, in every society. So what my suggestion to you all is that why don't we replace the word caste by ancestry? Okay, that will be a very broad way to categorize this without discriminating against anybody, because it doesn't make sense to end discrimination by discriminating a group of people who have been serving this community, very loyally for a long time. And so, like I said, that it could very well be against federal laws. We don't know, that you cannot discriminate, and you are absolutely discriminating by against Hindus by these policies. So that, and the other question I may raise is that this Professor Janardhan, who I am an alternate for, he mentioned that there may be a procedural reason why this should be not voted upon at all. And that has to do that it has changed since the first time it was brought up and now how it stands. So as it stands, we should not even vote on this here. It should be withdrawn. Or if we do have to vote, let's vote no. And, and it's such an important issue. How can we vote in 40 minutes? I mean, 30 minutes.
30-second warning. 30
I'm
seconds.
Sorry?
30 seconds.
30-second warning. Okay. So how can we vote on such an important topic, which will be affecting students for generations, in 30 minutes? It doesn't make sense, right? Because, I can go on and on, but I would say that, let's vote our conscience. Let's say that we want to eliminate all discrimination, but let's not discriminate in that process. Let's use the word ancestry. And, there are tribal discrimination. We know about that, right? So it'll catch those as well. Okay, I end before my time is up. How's that?
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to, because those who haven't spoken are to be recognized first before those who have spoken. So I'm going to call on Kumar Balani and come back to hands that were re-raised.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Professor Kumar
Yes.
Balani. I'm not a senator, so I need a senator to yield time.
I need someone who hasn't spoken yet to yield time.
Christina Crone, I'm a faculty senator from the med school. I'm happy to yield my time.
Thank you.
So I've been in the medical school since 1976, and I think this resolution, by using the word caste, actually discriminates a few of us, like myself, by being of Hindu origin, originally from India, but now very much Minnesotan. Caste has never been an issue for me. It never should be. And of course, nobody should be discriminated because we are all equal human beings. But I don't like the word caste because immediately it reflects upon me and I'm getting discriminated. And this hasn't been an issue for me. I don't know why it's an issue. Students, faculty, everybody at the university are well protected. There's the Office of Diversity where they can go and they can talk to them and get all the relief they need. So I think the word caste, like Professor Mohan said, needs to be removed. Everybody needs to be protected. There should be no discrimination. But don't use the word caste. It makes me feel bad and I feel discriminated. So it shouldn't be used at all. And use some other word like ancestry or something else. But when we come into the United States, caste should not be an issue. India is trying to get away from caste. It's illegal to do anything based on caste. why should we bring it as an issue to this country and to our university? And in other universities where it's been approved, it's actually being taken back now because they made a hasty decision by putting it as policy. We shouldn't do that mistake. The U of M should set an example by leading the country and using the correct terminology and not caste. Thank you for giving me time.
Thank you. Am I right that I may have lost track of names, that Aaron Corfield spoke already, or am I crossing wires on names?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so I'm going to call on again with the order. Matea Allard.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Natia, and I am the ranking student senator from the Student Senate, and I am also a co-author of this resolution. And I guess I'm feeling a bit concerned that people are, either saying that caste-based discrimination doesn't exist in general, or in the U of M community, where for a fact it does. And in talking to students who experience this, they are afraid to talk about this issue publicly. They're afraid to come forward and ask for help because there are no protections against them for that specific type of discrimination. Additionally, I find it concerning as well that other people are saying that they haven't, heard of, this type of discrimination when my grandfather, who was from India and, from, a so-called lower caste, he, had faced discrimination, and he was a professor at the U of M. So it very much does exist, both within the students and within the faculty as well. So thank you.
Thank you. So we are about 3 minutes, well, a few minutes, 3 to 4 minutes away from the time, just in terms of the hands that are raised. Again, someone who hasn't spoken before, I'm going to call on Karen Sutasig.
Yeah, thank you. I want to speak in support of this resolution. I actually am really dismayed by the people who are coming along and saying, well, I've never experienced caste discrimination, so we don't need to worry about it. We heard some really powerful voices of people who have experienced caste discrimination on our campus. We've heard powerful testimonials from students who would like to see this established. It seems appropriate to me. Some of the things that have been said just don't hold water. Racial discrimination is illegal in the US too. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It just really upsetting, hearing some of the voices, some of the things that are being said against this resolution seem really deeply problematic. So I urge people to support this resolution.
Thank you. We are nearing the end. I don't see new hands. I would like to call on the two people to make brief additional comments who've spoken already, and then Sarani, who had her hand up earlier, to if she has any concluding comments, but we hopefully can be brief. Aaron Corfield.
Hi, Aaron Corfield, faculty senator from the School of Medicine. I'd just like to push back on this idea that because one is in a protected class, it somehow discriminates against the larger class. So I'm in a protected class for my sexual orientation, but it doesn't make everybody who is in this, who has the same identity of me, in this kind of it doesn't discriminate against them. It protects the people who are in the class, and it's not used for broad discrimination. We're not using it to say that if you're not doing the discriminating against people in whatever class is protected, then there's no way that it's discriminating against you.
Thanks. I'm going to, because we are essentially out of time on the item, I'm going to call on, the hand went away, the new person. I'm just going to call on Sarani to make any concluding comments. She had her hand up earlier, and then we'll move to a vote. I will mention again, as I said at the outset, that this was discussed. It was discussed at various committee meetings. It was also discussed at the Faculty Senate meeting on December 2nd. So this is quite typical, where we would discuss at one meeting and then continue to discuss and vote at the next meeting. We did have that discussion earlier. Sarani.
Sorry, 1 second. I just scroll to her name.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. To clarify, I am a Hindu. I came from India 12 years ago, and I am a law student about to graduate and go out into this world. And so it is speaking to my privilege that I also would have thought that I came to this country and I left it behind. That is not, in fact, the case. The stories I hear break my heart. Yesterday, I received a phone call from an anonymous number that told me that I was betraying my community, that I should be ashamed, and that I would suffer. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to report it to. I'm an immigrant. I'm extremely competent, and I did not know what to do. So when I, with all my privilege, all my support, with being in the law school, did not know what to do, I do not think that countervailing one of the primary purposes of explicitly listing caste, which is to make it clear to the victims that they have protection, is called for. We will not accept an amendment to the word caste as a friendly amendment. And because I believe this is important and valuable, and because we've had a full discussion, I just ask you to vote for this resolution as a support for the principles.
Thank you. And with apologies to those whose hands are up, but who spoke earlier, we have run out of time. So we'll call for a vote on the resolution. Chris, can you pull up the poll?
About 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 141 ayes, 11 nays, and 14 abstentions, that motion does prevail.
Thank you. Item 11 on the agenda concerns administrative policy, COVID vaccination and safety protocols, and is presented for information, but I would like to call on Ned Patterson to speak about the item.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Thank you. So this is usually just an information item, but since it doesn't happen very often, I just wanted to explain a few things that the Senate Consultative Committee on behalf of the University Senate endorsed this new policy for COVID vaccination safety protocol for employees. And again, it was an endorsement. It's just advisory. It's not binding, but we do this when it's a timely issue doesn't have time to go to the next University Senate meeting or call a special meeting. And as this was taking effect in early December, the Senate Consultative Committee endorsed the new policy. It was a brand new policy from the university. And so there's a whole procedure for a new policy, and it happened this quickly. There's an exception to it, but we did make sure all the usual consultation was followed, and there was still the 30-day comment period afterwards. And then as SCC and FCC chair. I'm a member of the President's Policy Committee, so I get to speak anything that before the President's Policy Committee is binding and did approve the new policy. And part of the reason we did it is that there was the resolution in the fall by this university and faculty senates asking for a vaccine mandate. So it really fit with what our bodies had already asked for. And then if there's any additional changes to it, any policy revisions must go through the usual governance process. And there's a whole Senate matrix on how policies go through the Senate consultation for at least endorsement of them and comments back. And then you can read in the agenda what this body can do or not. But so it's mostly for information. Just want to make sure that was clear to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. Item 12 concerns Board of Regents policy intercollegiate athletics and is presented for information. Item 13 concerns a resolution on graduate assistant fees. And Ned, I'll call on you again to make a brief comment about that.
Okay, there we go. We just wanted to mention that this is an information item only that for this Senate that graduate assistant mandatory fees resolution will be discussed. Discussion only is the plan in the faculty Senate meeting. The resolution authors brought this resolution to the faculty Senate meeting. And as this resolution directly affects graduate students, and we have graduate student senators in this university Senate, but not in the faculty Senate, Senate leadership specifically invites graduate student senators or any other interested community members to be on the faculty Senate Zoom meeting for item number 6 there to hear the discussion. And as we just saw here, you could be, any community member can be asked to be yielded time from a faculty senator to speak if so desired. Thank you.
Thanks. Item 14 concerns old business. There is no old business for the Senate. Item 15 concerns new business for the University Senate. Please note that any new business will be referred to committee unless special permission is granted by 2/3 of those voting and present. I see Barbara Peterson has some new business.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Barb Peterson. I'm faculty in the School of Nursing. I'm present today as chair of Equity, Access, and Diversity Committee. The EAD committee has written a statement on Ukraine that has been signed on by the Social Concerns Committee. Thank you, Chair Frizzell. We are asking to bring it to the Senate for Senate endorsement.
Thank you. Is that it?
I'm ready to present it if I'm allowed.
Okay. Well, what we need to do is actually vote. So as I indicated, we need a 2/3 vote for immediate consideration. That is, I believe, not debatable. And again, a 2/3 vote to pass. So I would ask, and again, it's in the chat, there is a link to the document so that you can see the resolution. But I need a second I need a motion and a second for immediate consideration. You can make the motion for immediate consideration if you want, and then I'll call for a second, Barbara.
It looks like Samantha is seconding.
Yes, I do.
Oh.
And
okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. So now we can consider the request for immediate consideration. Chris, will you bring up the poll?
We'll give about 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 145 ayes, 6 nays, and 17 abstentions, that does reach a 2/3 majority threshold.
All right, thank you. So now we can consider it. And Barbara, if you have something to say in presentation, as I mentioned before, there's a link in the chat. So if you want to actually see senators to see the resolution that will be talked about, I will set 5 minutes for discussion. We're over the time for the University Senate meeting. We have the Faculty Senate meeting coming. I think that may be enough, but so let's start with a 5-minute window for discussing the matter and bringing it to a vote. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yes, if I could, I would like to, in addition to this document, share report from the Insight into Diversity. As we all know, the distributor of the HEED Award, where several US colleges and universities have recently announced plans to distance themselves from, from Russia in protest of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And this may be informational, and it may be a statement of this is a fluid situation, and we may the university may choose to, or we would ask the university to take even a stronger stand. May I put that in the chat?
Yes, I think that would be fine.
At this point, it's informational.
Okay. Can I call on those who are seeking to be recognized? Are you? Okay. Natalie Buckman.
Hello. I am not sure if this is the appropriate time, but I am in support of this resolution, but I'm wondering about the final sentence and if there is any ability to put more detail in that. It appears that it could hurt general population significantly, and that's my statement.
Can you just clarify
the final sentence? Furthermore, we suggest the university review its financial investments in Russian interests and divest from those immediately. That feels too general. It feels like it needs a bit of specificity to it.
All right, I'll just add that as with other actions of this kind, it is advisory, and there probably would be further discussion about specifics as time went on with further consultation. So thank you. Scott Petty.
Hello, my name is Scott Petty. I'm the CFANS graduate student senator. This is for information of the body. The Student Senate met this morning. We had a resolution brought forward as new business by the Student Senator, Graduate Student Senator from CBS. It passed overwhelmingly in the discussion in the Student Senate, which is a little bit more expansive than I think what we're going to have here. There was pushback precisely about divestment, but it ended up passing. I think something that was superior in Adams' student written resolution was there was an overt, an explicit emphasis on the refugee situation, principally in Poland, but the Ukrainians who have, who have fled their country into Poland. And so that's just a comment. I don't know if friendly amendments are appropriate at this kind of business, but I think that was a strength of the student resolution relative to this was that while it said pretty much all of this, there was an added, explicit mentioning of the refugee situation.
Thank you, Scott. Matea.
Sorry. Okay, I'm unmuted. Okay, so yeah, Matea, ranking student senator. So in general, I'm in support of this. I think that there needs to be more specific language around sort of the the financial investments and divestments and what that could mean for even potential like research collaborator relationships as well. And also, I think instead of I think that recognizing that this is a complex issue, and instead of sort of unilaterally saying that we support Ukraine, I think it's also important to note that there are African students and residents of the Ukraine who are being refused at the border. And I think saying that we sort of unilaterally support Ukraine is also sort of saying that that's an acceptable practice. So I think that that needs to be either called out or something about that needs to be said in this letter or resolution statement.
Thank you. Sarani.
Chair Chomsky, I want to speak in support of this resolution. The Student Senate resolution that we passed this morning also was extremely similar and has broad support of the Student Senate, passed with really, I think it was a really high proportion. I want to add that the university offers military leave, and you can go to onestop.umn.edu/veterans/military-leave to go to it if there are other ways in which people want to support Ukraine in this time. I just wanted to bring that resource up, and I want to thank you for, on this very short notice, coming up with this resolution so that we can speak with one voice.
Thank you, Sarani. I was about to say I'll recognize the two people whose hands are up. We're up against the 5 minutes, so I will do that. Pavel Mraz.
I thank you for recognition. I'm Pavel Mraz. I'm a faculty senator from the medical school. I want to speak just in support of that resolution. I originally come from Poland, came to the United States 15 years ago. This has been a tragedy for Ukrainians, but also for other surrounding countries. Poland over the last week accepted over 500,000 refugees into our homes. I've been completely glued to news stations from United States, Poland, Ukraine. This is a major humanitarian crisis in the making. This is a terrible war at the whim of one despot that is hiding somewhere in Ural Mountains in the bunker right now without the courage to face the world. Any support that we can give to Ukrainians, whether just mere statement like this, financial statement or any help, is very valuable. So I'm strongly speaking in support of this motion, and thank you for bringing that forward, Barbara. I appreciate that.
All right, and the final speaker, Adam Sikla.
Hello, thank you. I wrote the resolution that went through the Student Senate, so I'm obviously in support of this, and I hope everyone votes in support of this statement as well. I noticed that there was one more hand, so I will yield the rest of my time to Dr. Jason Kerwin.
All right, the hand went down, but if you want to yield your time, I need the hand up again to find you. There, Jason Kerwin, thank you.
Jason Kerwin, Faculty Senator, CFANS. I strongly support this resolution. I just have a point of clarification. Does the University of Minnesota offer military leave to people who are serving in any military for any country anywhere in the world? I was not clear on what that point was about, and I'm curious.
A question I can't answer. Barbara.
Are we ready? Or I feel like you've kind of called it.
Right. I didn't know if you had an answer to the question.
I don't know. I don't know that
okay
question.
Okay. All right. I think it's time to vote. I will just say one thing. I'm not speaking about the substance of the particular, and I don't get to vote because I'm in the chair, but we usually do as you've seen in other instances, even on the agenda today, we talk in one meeting, we consult with committees, we come back to the Senate. There's time to craft specific language because there have been some questions raised here. This one was done very quickly for important reasons under emergency situations, and so I just mention that in the context of passing what is an advisory resolution speaking about a perspective and a point of view, and not by itself changing policy or actions which would require further actions by the university. And I think we are ready to vote. Chris, can you pull up the poll?
We'll give about 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 139 ayes, 4 nays, and 15 abstentions, that motion does prevail.
Thank you, Chris. There is now, I entertain a motion for adjourning the University Senate. In this Zoom world, it's hard to.
Motion for adjournment. Yes.
Thank you. I think I see a second. And the poll is up.
About 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 154 ayes, 1 nay, 0 abstentions, that motion prevails.
Thank you. So we are adjourned. The Faculty Senate will follow. We'll take a brief, like a 3-minute break. We'll come back at 3:50. We're behind on the schedule, but it's not a very lengthy agenda. So I will see everybody on the Faculty Senate back. Others are welcome to stay, but would need to have, welcome to stay, but I'm not part of the Senate. So we'll take a break and come back at 3:50. All right, back for the Faculty Senate meeting. I'll call the Faculty Senate meeting to order. I know this is a meeting of the Faculty Senate, while non-faculty senators are welcome to attend this meeting. Only faculty senators may introduce business and vote on matters considered at this meeting. The floor is reserved for faculty senators. Others may have the floor only if yielded time by a faculty senator and recognized by the chair. But as occurred in the University Senate meeting, that's a pretty easy thing to happen. And students in particular were invited to come to talk about an agenda item on today's Faculty Senate meeting. Item 2 of the agenda concerns administrative responses to Faculty Senate actions and is presented for information, but there are none pending. Item 3 is approval of the minutes from the Faculty Senate meeting on December 2nd, 2021, and the special Faculty Senate meeting on January 20th, 2022. Chris, please initiate the poll.
Give about 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 79 ayes, 1 nay, and 5 abstentions, that motion does prevail.
Thank you. Item 4 is the FCC report, and I'll call on Ed Patterson to give the report.
Thank you, Carol. There's been a number of things in FCC meetings and Consultative Committee leadership since our last Faculty Senate meeting. One I mentioned in the Senate Consultative Committee met with wellness plan folks, Mary Roman Kuhl, the Total Rewards Director, and Laura Manydeeds, the Wellbeing Program Manager, and FCC did also, and there's been numerous suggestions and ideas on how to improve that plan going forward. And if anybody wants to add additional, feel free to contact FCC leadership or the Senate staff. As you know, but just in case anybody missed it, there was a special faculty meeting to approve the Juneteenth proposal, which was approved to make it this coming year a no class day. And then there's continued work on Juneteenth to make it a university holiday going forward. And there will be updates on that. As many of you know, but in case you missed it, we had a faculty town hall, FCC with faculty senators to discuss faculty morale and silver linings to our twin pandemics of COVID and racism. Brainstorm ideas on improving the faculty experience and working relationship going forward, and also what silver linings to continue. FCC and FCC leadership has had additional discussions of that feedback to Provost Croson, to President Gable, we had some small meeting groups with the Board of Regents, including we did discuss with all of those groups competitive faculty salaries and concerns and discontent there. And then there's likely to be planned, won't be announcing anything more soon, a potentially larger brainstorming session with a facilitator, with a broader group of faculty and potentially employees to really come up with some concrete ideas going forward. And so we're continuing to discuss that with the administration. We had our FCC chair election for next year and vice chair election. I'm very pleased to announce that current FCC Vice Chair Colleen Flaherty Manchester is now the chair-elect of FCC, and that a current FCC member in his third year in FCC, Mark B, is the FCC Vice Chair-elect. So congratulations to them both. The FCC also, on a periodic basis, had intellectual futures discussion for higher education. What are important topics we need to think about broadly? And the first one we've done in a little while, we asked Matt Kramer to present with Provost Croson there and President Gable, the public perception of higher education. And we got some interesting data on some polls from the American Association of Universities and then specific Minnesota polls. The good news is that Minnesotans really value higher education in our state. The not so good news that we may need to be aware of and work on is that very few think higher education needs more money, though. So that's a challenge for us going forward, but most really highly value it of Minnesotans. Just in our FCC meeting right before this, we met with the new chief auditor who now reports directly to the Regent's office, also to the president, but directly to the Regents, Quinn Galswick, and he had informed us just to make sure we were all aware of what the internal auditor does, what kind of outside audits go to happen, and areas there. If you have any questions, please contact leadership. And then in that same meeting, the faculty, there's a proposal to change the Health Sciences Consultative Committee to a Faculty Advisory Committee to the Health Sciences. The FCC was supportive. As far as I know, the Committee on Committees has endorsed that, and that likely will come for discussion at least at our next Faculty Senate meeting with the rationale and the reasoning behind it. So be looking for that. In addition, FCC continues to discuss, and we're recommending that we now add a voting member of FCC from the Rochester campus and from the Duluth campus, in addition to the already existing Morris elected member and 9 Twin Cities elected members of FCC. And then we're starting initial discussions, and we will be talking to other consultative leaders on the implications for SCC, because there's currently how the bylaws are, there's automatic FCC members that are part of the Senate Consultative Committee. So we're going to work with the other consultative committees, and both of those things will probably be coming to either the faculty or university senate as appropriate in the future. And then lastly, as to the resolution that was passed on academic freedom last fall in the Senate, in the faculty senate, the administrative response to that was not in this meeting because there was an email on Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 from the administration for their response for that. I will make sure this will then be recorded in these minutes, and if we can have the minutes reflect a link to that email, I think that would make it very complete. And that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. Item 5 is approval of revisions to 2 educational policies that were linked to in the docket. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can you initiate the poll? Yes, that comes next. Thank you.
You have about 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 66 ayes, 0 nays, and 20 abstentions, that motion does prevail.
Thank you. Item 6 is a discussion of a resolution on graduate assistant fringe rates. At this meeting, the item is on the agenda for discussion only. It will come back at another time for a vote. I call on Professor George John to present the item.
Thank you, Chair Chomsky. I hope you guys can hear me. All right. Thank you very much for allowing us to bring this up to this committee, to the Senate, excuse me. So I think compared to the emotionally fraught things we were discussing earlier, this is something which is much more under our control, and I think we can get through this much easier. I'm happy to answer questions on it. My co-author on this resolution, Scott Petty, is also here. So let me give you the sort of the backstory to this. I've been a faculty member for a long time, but I still remember my grad student days when we got our admissions letters and our stipends, and we were rather pleased about it. And then you turn up on campus and you realize you have to juggle the small stipend you get against all the expenses you have. And one of the quirks of our accounting system is that when you land up on campus, you get your gross stipend, and then a certain fraction of it is clawed back as mandatory fees. It's no secret over the last decade or so, these mandatory fees have grown faster than the headline tuition number has. We can debate why, but I think that's a fact that nobody would disagree with. It makes it very awkward for new students turning up on campus to be awarded a certain salary as a stipend and then have a significant amount of it, particularly in the first few months, clawed back, especially if you're an international student because you've got these extra heavy mandatory fees. It's a simple thing to fix. All we have to do is to treat mandatory fees the same way we treat any other deduction at source. So you should get the net amount rather than the gross amount. If you look at the resolution, you will see that we've tried to stay on principle. We're not trying to tell the administration how to accomplish it. It's not a difficult accounting fix, given what I know about accounting, but the devil's always in the details. So I'd like support from the Senate to tell the administration this is something we can do for our grad students. It's unnecessary grief we impose on them. There's no need to have it happen this way. And in doing our due diligence and taking it to different committees, I heard back two clusters of comments. One, does it make our admissions letters look less competitive? Because instead of saying you're going to get X dollars, you'd be actually saying you're going to get X dollars minus these fees. To be honest, I don't know the answer to that, but the reality is we're being honest saying that you're going to get the X minus delta. So that's my response to it. We should be honest at the very least. The second cluster of questions that came up had to do with, does this mean that my proposal to NSF or something else is going to cost more? Is this going to change the way the university handles charges and things like that? And our intention is not to change anything about anybody's budget, but simply to avoid a graduate student who has a stipend from having any part of it clawed back, but rather it be deducted at the source. That's the sum and substance of this proposal, honestly. And I'm happy to, as I said, answer any questions if we have the time.
Thank you. Is there discussion? And if there is, please remember to indicate who you are and who you represent, or if you need time yielded. Moinak Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair Chomsky. My name is Moinak Chowdhury. I'm an international graduate student, and I'm a member of SCAFA, the Senate Committee on Faculty Affairs. First of all, I'd like to thank Professor George John and Scott Petty for bringing up this resolution. This is something that was put in front of SCAFA as well, and we had some discussion on it. I'd like to reiterate a key point that I had made at the meeting, and I urge the committee to consider this as well. The key point being this, that's something that concerns all graduate students, domestic and international, should at some point have a chance for other graduate students to participate in the conversation, particularly at least being made aware of the resolution and what it entails. Now, I know this might seem like extra work, and it is, and I don't mean that Professor George or Scott has to do it, perhaps a committee at large. But the reason for this is, one, international students particularly have been feeling increasingly isolated from the university at large. The grad CERU results will be a clear indication of that. And what we've realized as a student body is the need to do something else. Rather than assigning more trainings to international students, how can we help international students feel like they're more part of decisions being made by the university for them? I think that's fair, something quite fair to ask. And I'd like to urge either the committee or the presenters to at some point consider how more students, particularly international student bodies, the Council of International Grad Students, can be made aware of this resolution so that students feel more ownership about decisions taken about their lives and, of course, the fees they're paying. I think it'll make the process more efficient, although a little bit slower. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I will mention again that it's up for discussion this time with opportunity for further consultation between now and when it comes back to the Senate. So those comments are helpful. Ellen, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Ellen Messer-Davidow, Faculty Senator, English, CLA. This is outside the purview of the resolution, but related to it. I'm wondering if any Senate committees or if the administration has been looking at graduate student stipends to decide whether they're adequate, whether they're competitive with peer institutions, and so forth. I do know that our graduate students in English are really squeezed, and we have our own funds at the foundation. So we try to supplement what the university itself provides. And of particular concern is money during the summer jobs, summer stipends, and so forth. So I'm wondering if anybody's taking a broader look at graduate student support.
Thanks. As you said, it's outside the scope of this, but a comment that I'm sure has been heard. Jerry Cohen.
Jerry Cohen, faculty senator from CFANS. I just want to say that I think this is well overdue, and there's a couple of things about it that is worth mentioning. First of all, these clawback issues, as faculty, we can't pay them. So, you know, we're not allowed to actually pay that fee out of university funds. And if this goes into this other pot, we can, and I think it's a great idea. Somebody mentioned about Nsf grants, and so I used to work at Nsf, and I've never heard a single panel ever complain about the size of graduate stipends. As a matter of fact, I was on a committee that looked into graduate stipends. We found them uniformly across the nation too low. So I just think that this gets rid of a tax on our students that we are unable to compensate them for. And you know, the actual salaries set by graduate programs are quite fluid across this university. So people can play with that however they like, but putting it into the other category means that those of us who actually like our graduate students can pay those fees. And I think that's a big positive. And so I support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Mary Owen.
Thank you. I'd like to applaud the writers of the resolution, appreciate this, but I also agree that I'd like to hear from, I'd really hope that you will consult with students and have their voices, because I just would want to ensure that they think that this is enough and that they're feeling, you know, that they're having their voices heard. So Miigwech, thank you so much.
Thank you. Sarah Lamb.
One clarifying question that I have is whether this would result in graduate students effectively paying those fees earlier than they would have without the change. And then just a comment that 10% of their stipends going towards fees, it seems unethical to be charging the university's workers such a high percentage of their compensation as fees. So I agree with one of the earlier commenters that that is something that really deserves attention. Can we reduce or cancel fees for graduate student workers or increase their stipends to balance that?
Thank you. Scott Petty.
I will need time yielded.
Waiting for someone to, I think those are hands that will yield time. So I think Jen Goodenough is probably yielding her time. So go ahead.
Hi, my name is Scott Petty. I'm the graduate student senator from CFANS, and I'm the student co-author of this. So just take comments in order. As for consultation with students, I was the graduate student body president last year. Before that, I was the chair of the legislative body for the graduate student government for 2 years. The current president of the Council of International Graduate Students, I believe, is still Satomi. At the very beginning of this process, I had a conversation with Satomi about this resolution in its earliest stages. After going to faculty affairs and having the comment from the previous speaker and that committee, I reached out to the advisor for the Council of Graduate Students, and I made clear if they invite me to come and talk to them, I will show up with bells on at any time of their choosing. I have not heard back from them. For the mechanics of fees, the 10% number is basically if you're at the lower end of the stipend scale, the fees add up to about a little bit over 10% of your total gross pay if you are not yet advanced status. If you're advanced status, the fees go down. It's less of a problem. Basically, you have to pay the fee. You have to pay the fees at the very beginning of the semester. So, in terms of a clawback, you're basically having to pay the fees at almost the exact. In theory, you'd have to pay the fees before you've even received enough money in gross pay to pay the fees. The university several years ago gave a workaround where employed graduate students get to have the first late fee waived. And so they can pay it a little bit later so that functionally they're paying their fees at the moment that they've just received enough gross pay to cover them. So the mechanism described by George does not cause the fees to be paid earlier. By prorating them out, you're out over the entire semester, while as Jerry mentioned, giving the option for faculty members or departments or colleges at their discretion to pick up the fees without mandating or requiring them to do so. One of the reasons I reached out to George as the faculty sponsor for this with me is when he was the dean of Carlson, he implemented something like this. Well, one of his first decisions as the academic dean of Carlson was he just decided that Carlson was going to pick up the fees for the graduate students because of all of these issues that we're talking about. This clawing back is incredibly painful. If I give you all 2 cookies and then I go around the room and take one of the cookies back, you're actually less happy than if I gave you 1 cookie. Like, this is just one of these outcomes of behavioral economics. I've probably gone too long, and I'll be quiet now.
Thanks, Scott. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I think we are ready. Oh, we're not voting on this. Sorry, this was just for discussion. So thank you for the comments. We'll move on the agenda. Item 7 concerns amendments to the administrative policy using controlled substances for research and is presented for information. Item 8 concerns a statement on academic freedom and term appointments and is presented for information. Item 9 concerns old business. There is no old business for the Faculty Senate. Item 10 concerns new business for the Faculty Senate. If there is any new business, it will be referred to committee unless special permission is granted by 2/3 of those present and voting. Is there any new business? Seeing none, I will call for a motion for adjournment. I see a motion from Professor Patterson. Is there a second? I see a second. Please, Chris, if you will initiate the poll.
You have about 10 more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. There being 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention, that motion prevails.
Thank you. So we started late and we ended on time. Thank you all. And we'll see you next